I have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Goodness, no, that's fine. Okay. Can anybody tell me where we left off? Because I thought I marked.
14.
14.
14.
Oh,
We're doing number 14.
oh, right there. It says end. Okay. I just didn't date it. Okay. So we're going to start with Joe today in front of me here. And if you want to go through and start on number 14, please.
Okay. All right. Agertai, te hemera, te trite or trite, kata tas graphas. So he was praised the day on the third, according to the scriptures. So he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures.
Okay.
Dissect and parse Egegertai. It's hard to pronounce that. Egertai. Verb, it's a part of speech, verb, tense perfect, voice middle, mood indicative, augment is not applicable. Third person, singular, agaipo is a lexical form, stem is ager.
Yeah.
Ending tie, connective vowel, not applicable. Third singular is a subject.
And the one thing I'll just bring out in all of that, because we haven't gone over the perfect yet, but this is a perfect tense, which is they take the stem and they duplicate this, they reduplicate the stem. So you have the stem twice in the word. They take it, it's one of the, that's one of the signs of a perfect is the stem's been reduplicated. Not always, but predominantly. And the significance of the perfect is he was raised with the result that he remains raised. Very important to the statement. Okay, B.
B, what was the adjective trite or trite in the phrase te himera te trite or trite? What is the significance of this use? So I put it's in the attributive use.
Okay.
Okay. And it attributes a quality of the third, I guess the third of the nominative it modifies, which is the day.
Okay.
How can one be sure that kata is translated along according to rather than down or down from? So I put kata is being used with accusative case use of graphe, graphas. That's why I put according.
Okay. The other part of that is tas grafas. What do we have for a?
It's a accusative plural feminine. It's a noun, right?
Okay, there we go. And it's in the accusative that word, that kata then has the sense of according.
Yeah, that's why I said that with the accusative case use of graphe, which is graphas, right?
What?
That's what I wrote. I said it was the kata is being used because as according to, or because graphe or graphas is an accusative case.
I apologize, Joe. I just have not drank enough coffee. That's a horrible.
That's okay. But to be more specific, you're right. It's a noun and accusative plural feminine. So.
Okay, Peggy Ann, number 15.
Logon takes Alexias Boy Mathitai. Didas Duntai.
Okay. So, ton logon is the word case aletheos is of the truth, so the word of the truth. And then hoi mathetai, the disciples, the daskantai, are teaching, or we would say that in English, the disciples are teaching the word of the truth.
They're teaching one another.
Oh, because we have a middle voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, wait a second.
This is one of those as a deponent that most people probably wouldn't bring out that emphasis, but I believe that is correct. Okay, so
Wait a
mathetai.
second.
Yeah.
Didaskantai is a deponent?
Well, no. Remember, deponent is a middle or passive form
Right.
that a lot of translators just say that's just active.
Okay.
That's the way they do it. So they don't even really pay attention to the middle sense. But as I've tried to make a case, I think the middle sense is inherent in the nature of in the nature of the word, but especially when because you have didasko, or no, because didasko would be I teach. So the very fact that you have a middle would really have to be emphasizing that they are teaching. You could translate it passive and say they are being taught. The disciples are being taught the word of the truth.
Right, but in 11:4a, where it talks about direct middle, the reciprocal
Right.
has a plural subject that engages in an interchange of action,
Mm-hmm.
like reading here.
Mm-hmm. So that's why that would
That's
be.
why I said one another.
Yes. Very good. Okay, mathetai.
We're gonna get to that.
What part of speech is that?
Mathetai is a noun.
It's a noun, and its case in this situation, this context. What?
I put the wrong thing. I think. No, I was right. Nominative.
It is one nominative, and it is plural. Okay.
Masculine. Lexical form is hamathetes, declension first, and its function in the sentence is the subject.
Okay. So what is the significance of the function of the voice didaskantai in this sentence?
I'm gonna let Joe answer.
What is
I
the
wrote, it's the function of it, it's the reciprocal use of the direct middle, therefore translated as one another. That's what I wrote.
okay?
Me too.
Okay,
Okay.
Robin, number 16.
Krinatai en te parabole tu prophetu. One is being judged by the parable of the prophet.
Okay.
Dissect and parse. It is a verb in the present tense, passive voice, indicative mood. I still don't really understand augment, I guess.
That's because we don't have any augments yet. I'm not sure why they've introduced that. An
But
augment.
if it had an augment, it would be epsilon, because it's a it would be a consonant leading a consonant. So they're just introducing that, like you say.
Right. This is what we're going to get when we move into the next
Right.
chapter, where we're going to start looking at imperfects.
So the augment would be epsilon?
If there were,
Right.
but there
there's
isn't.
not one.
There is not one. Yeah.
There is not one, but it would be epsilon because it leads a consonant.
Okay. Person, third, number, singular, lexical form, crino, stem, cream, ending, tie, connecting vowel, epsilon, subject, he, she, or it. Or the way I translated it, one. Is parabole dative, vocative, or instrumental? How can you be sure? How does the preposition "n" help in the identification of the case of parabole? What other factors must be considered in locating the case? I said instrumental because it's used with "n," and I feel like that answers all of those questions.
And the other thing that, if you remember, if we have "n" with the instrumental, hupo is direct agency, intermediate agency, dia. "N" with the instrumental is, they call it impersonal means, impersonal instrument by which, so, okay. Okay, back to you. Oh, any other questions?
So that's what it was looking for. is
Yes.
An impersonal agent.
Right,
That's how another factor you can consider.
sure. Which in that case, it really is impersonal because it's a parable. It's not a person.
Right.
We do have places where we have people that are the means of accomplishing things. I don't exactly understand how that's impersonal in those, but okay.
Maybe they don't know they're doing it.
That may be. Okay, Joe, back to you, number 17.
Okay, parabole, tes basileas, ton, aranon, didaskatai, upo, to, pistu, apostolou.
Okay, the word after tas basileas, tone, how do you say the word after that?
Tas basileas, ton. It's that would be the haranon?
The oo. Does yours-
Uranon.
does yours
Oh,
have-
that's right. Uranon.
Okay,
Uranon.
yeah, because
Okay.
there's not a rough breathing bar.
Oh, no.
Uranon.
Uranon.
Uranon. Uranon.
Uranon. Right.
So tone uranon. Yeah.
Tone uranon. Got it.
Okay, go ahead and translate.
So in rough, I put a parable of the kingdom of the heavens. She is being taught, or one is being taught by the faithful apostle. So a parable of the kingdom of the hearers, the ones hearing, is being taught by the faithful
Oh.
apostle.
Okay, not the ones hearing.
Of the heavens, excuse me, heavens. Just looking at my, it's a V, not an R. and I wrote too fast. Okay, the parable of the kingdom of the heavens is being taught by the faithful apostle, right?
Okay,
It's a passive direct agent. I wrote them on my left side. So anyway, part of speech, locate parabole, noun, nominative, singular, it's a feminine, parabole, declension first, and I left function in this sentence blank. I don't know why. So that would probably be functions is describing something of the heavens. So
okay. Well, what's the case? What is the
the
case?
case is a, oh, I guess it's the subject, right? The nominative.
There it is.
It's a nominative feminine singular. So yeah, it's a subject. I
Okay.
don't know why I left it blank.
So if you strip, and something that's helpful to do this, if you stripped everything away from the sentence except the main idea,
So a parable is being taught.
there it is. Okay, there you go. Okay, B.
What is the significance of the function of the voice didaskatai in this sentence? I wrote it's a direct agent. Don't know why, but that's what I wrote.
Because that's the answer. What is the significance of the function of the voice of the Didaskatai? There's a direct agent. That's what I wrote.
It's been a while since I did.
Well, they're asking you about the voice though. What's the voice?
It's a passive voice.
Passive voice.
Passive direct agent. That's why I wrote that on the left. It's a passive direct agent.
And it's direct agent because it's followed by.
Supo.
Supo.
Oh, right?
But with the genitive indicates direct agent, yes. Okay. Any other questions on that one? And what, just to point this out, because our Bibles don't translate it this way, it's the parable of the kingdom, or about the kingdom of the heavens, plural, or it's just always called the kingdom of heaven, but it's a kingdom of the heavens. So,
We're gonna have to get into some theological discussions if we're gonna keep pointing stuff like that out.
well, and if you want to work on that idea more, read Daniel 4, because Daniel 4 will tell you why. It really gives you the background of understanding that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to take 10 minutes of our class doing that.
It's a long, it takes fun.
So we're going to go to verse 8, or no, exercise 18.
A lot of math used about that in
It
the very
is.
beginning.
It is. Okay.
it's me.
Yes, Peggy, if you would.
Okay, didaskalos, proserkatai, tus laus aistan oikon.
Okay. So hadidaskalos is the teacher. Proserkatai
Is coming through.
is coming to. Tus laos. Laos. I always wonder if
The people's.
Laos, the country Laos, if for some reason it got its name this way from this, or if it's just a word that sounds like it from a different language.
Yeah, interesting.
Laos, but that's the people, and then peoples, yes. Aistan oikon. Into the house.
So the teacher is coming to the people's into the.
Or we probably just say in the house.
Why?
What?
Why?
Well, because it's kind of awkward the other way. Because probably what you're really saying in this statement is that the teacher goes into the house and he's going to the people, going before the people. So it's like there's two separate ideas in what's happening in the last part of the sentence. Because it's not telling you where the people are. That if you were telling where the people are at the house, what would you do at the end of that? Primarily.
People inside the house?
Okay, and so if you're going to say inside the house, what would you do with the word house?
Make it locative.
You'd make a locative, so you would write it
I mean, come on, Tim.
not oikon, but
Oika. Right? No. Oiko.
go down one more.
I can't do this. I can't remember this.
What'd you say, Joe?
Oiko.
Oiko. It'd be oiko, and your preposition wouldn't be
To.
I. It'd be what preposition do you use? What'd you say?
Oh, I would say it'd be the article has to be changed too. So
Right.
to
Yeah.
oiko.
Oiko. And what's one of the prepositions we use to indicate location?
And
En. Yeah.
En.
So it'd be en to oiko.
En toi oko. Oiko. Right.
Okay.
so the book says the teacher goes to the people in the house.
Mhm. And I don't think, just to be clear, I don't think in the house is indicating where the people are. It's indicating where the teacher's going. He's going before the people and into the house. So he's going into the house. What?
The teacher
What?
goes to the people in the house. I mean,
Okay. If it's telling you that the people are in the house, it would be en to oiko. But because he's talking about where he's going, it says so it's like saying two things. He's going to the people, He's going into the house. It's like really saying two things in this, in the,
And the people may or may not be in the house.
yeah, that's not
isn't a
not
good
particularly
sentence.
the emphasis. I would agree. You would, the bed, you'd write it ha didaskalos prosekutai ice ton oikon. He's going into, because ice indicates direction or movement
Yeah, yeah.
into. If he's telling you that the people are in the house, that would be in. Okay, that's what I'm trying to emphasize. So you have to think about what he's saying. Again, this is a made up sentence. This doesn't come from scripture.
Okay, but hold on. Even though the tus laus is in lid case, so the teacher is. I also don't know why we're saying going, because they told us that proserkatai means coming to. But we can leave that alone. But if it's in lid case, then the people are either a location, an
Okay,
instrument, or they're receiving it.
but the people aren't in the lid case. People are in the tus lauses,
Oh, you're right.
It's accusative.
accusative plural. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to introduce a conjunction there, like loose kai ice?
Yes.
That's
Oh.
just a bad sentence.
Yeah, it's, I don't particularly care for it. And this is the way I translate it. As the teacher, erkatai means to go or to go. Proserkatai, go before or go to. So, or some of your Bibles are going to translate it maybe come, kind of depends on the emphasis that they want to bring to it. All of it, you're saying the same thing,
I mean,
just from different.
okay, it says I come for. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
What is the significance of the function of the word?
of the
Moving on.
voice,
The voice of proserkatai in this sentence.
okay, so first of all, what's the voice of proserkatai?
The deponent middle.
Okay, that's the way they're going to take it.
Mhm.
We're going to say what type of a middle?
Deponent.
Deponent, that's right. But remember, deponent from their point of view means that it's technically just an active.
Right.
But I'm saying when you have erkatai, you're involved in that activity of going. And so
Middle?
it's middle, which they're saying it's a
Taking
deponent
himself.
middle. Yeah,
Be
so,
reflexive?
okay, or simply intensive that it is,
No, yeah,
Simply-
it's intensive or reflexive?
that he himself is going. So he's not going for himself, he himself is going to the people in the house, which is the way I would take it.
So you're saying it's an intensive middle?
That's the way I would understand it. He himself, so you're really laying emphasis on
Okay.
he.
So if, to clarify that it's an intensive middle, then wouldn't we want to add that into the translation that the teacher himself
Right.
or herself?
Mhm.
So that's why I said reflexive, because we didn't put a himself or herself there.
Right.
Okay, so
Just
I thought-
reflexive. I don't know.
Because there is a difference, according to this textbook,
Mhm.
between a verb in the intensive middle and the deponent
Okay.
middle.
Because, okay, so
Hold on,
I was going to ask a question here.
because if they're telling us that the word, we're working with the word erkomai, right?
Right.
Which does not have an active voice.
Right.
It only has a middle or passive voice.
Mhm.
Is that accurate? Okay.
That's right.
So then by default, they say that these words, we treat them as active. So you wouldn't put the myself, himself, whatever.
Mhm.
But what you're saying is that it acts as intensive because he's got a personal, it's still middle voice, so there's a personal
Right.
component to it.
Right. So I'm saying I don't know that I fully agree on the idea of a deponent. We talked about this when we introduced this chapter, that even though that's the way the textbook goes, there are some textbooks that think there really is not a such thing as a deponent verb. They're verbs that just naturally are middle by the nature of the verb. If I go, I myself am doing it. It's not like I'm sending somebody in my place. I could say that I'm sending somebody in my place. But if I'm going, so that's why I think, and I think Joe's right, and I don't think I even translated it right. I should say the teacher himself goes before the people in the house. That would
Well,
be
so here's my question then.
Sure,
For
yeah.
the purposes of this class, and when we're translating sentences, do we just ignore this whole 11.4D paragraph about the defective middle? Because if we ignore it, then we can translate that as an intensive, and we'll always put the self in there, and it will be in alignment with what our teacher was telling us is true in experience. But if we don't, then we don't put the self in and we treat it like an active verb.
right. My suggestion to you is to think through it both ways, just because I'm not an expert. People that write these textbooks are more of an expert, although like I said, there are textbooks in which there are teachers that disagree on the nature of the deponent. They don't think that there really is one. And I kind of align myself that way. So if you want to keep me happy, I'm not going to wrestle. I'm just going to point out how I view it. But
Well, and for this particular sentence, if we add the teacher himself, if we add himself in there, it's not going to change the meaning
no,
of the sentence. But I could see where we might run into situations where we have a word that it would change the meaning of the
Right.
sentence. if we added that in.
yes. If we're,
I think the synonym for intensive would be emphasis. So you'd want to add the word himself to that for emphasis, which would make it intensive to me. So if it's not added, I think it would be just a direct middle, right? Like a reflexive.
Well, if we don't
I don't
add,
know.
if we don't add that, then we're just really going to treat it kind of like an active verb, which
Right.
is what the textbook is suggesting that we do. But I've just tried to make a case that I think that there's another way to look at these deponents, these defective middles.
Right. The book is
So-
basically saying this is an active verb, but it looks like a middle verb.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think ultimately context will determine all that.
Pardon me?
Context will determine what we're trying to do here, right? What kind of middle it might be.
Okay.
And maybe I'm just making it harder than it has to be.
No. What we're doing is the book is saying this, and I'm suggesting that I think that there's another way to look at these that
Is more clear.
I think it's maybe more true to form, is what I'm saying.
Because Tim, the thing that really gets my heart beating is accuracy.
Yeah.
I want to be accurate. And so if that, I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say, is that it's more accurate to think of these not as deponents, but as intensive middle.
Yeah. That I think that we're, when you're going to bring out accuracy, just for us to be able to think through it and say, this word is in the middle voice here, rather than in an active form, not just because it was lost, but because the very fact that you go, you're involved in that in some way. You're involved in going. So, so I wrote down a note. I want to look up some other examples, and I know next time we're supposed to be moving into the next chapter, but well, or talking about the test, and I put the test up online, so it's available. I don't have the answers up online. I'll get those hopefully up next week or something. So that you can,
Yeah.
so you can check those. What? Okay. Okay, so number B.
Well, really, just skip it. What's the relationship of oikon to the preposition ice?
The object.
It's the object. It's the object, yeah, because it's answering the question into what? Into the house. Okay.
19. Whose turn is it?
Yours. Yours.
Okay. Anthropoi to Cosmu, Daxadzantai, ton theon, dikaioi anthropoi daxadzusin. I had a really hard time with the second part of this sentence. The first part, however, men of the world are glorifying one another, is what I said. Or glorifying themselves, I feel like, is what it should be, but
And that's what I went for the translation. We can talk about that.
please let's.
And then,
And then, okay, so it says Tantheon, the god, righteous men, he glorifies. So God glorifies righteous men.
okay. The first part's good. The last part, the second sentence there, no. Okay,
Well,
so
so
go
what
back.
I actually wrote was righteous men glorify God,
That's right.
but it doesn't make sense to me. It just makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me looking at the words, but it makes sense to me.
Okay, well, we're translating. Okay. What is that? What is the ending for dikaioi anthropoi?
Plural.
Plural in what case?
Nominative.
Nominative, which means that's the
Subject.
subject.
So
And what is
righteous
tantheon?
men. Tantheon, I guess it's, okay. It makes sense.
Accusative.
Accusative.
Mm-hmm.
So righteous men glorify God.
So now when we put the two
Clauses.
clauses together, it's a contrast.
Yeah, okay. My brain got all screwed up with the ending of the word. But no, we're there. Righteous men glorify God. Men of the world are glorifying one another
One another or
for
themselves.
themselves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And righteous men glorify God to righteous men.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first, can we talk about this Daxadzantai
Mm-hmm.
situation? So here's what the book says. The reflexive in use is the one nearest the basic idea. It refers the result of the action directly to the agent. Anthropos egairatai. The man is raising himself up.
So that would mean,
I guess that works. So the men of the world are glorifying themselves.
yeah. The reciprocal works because we have a
Reciprocal.
plural subject.
Right.
But I don't have a problem with that.
So when it's plural, it's not always reciprocal.
No. I think in light of the context of the two statements, it's almost like, yeah, we could say that they're glorifying one another,
Uh-huh.
but it's almost more like saying they're glorifying themselves. That seems to
That makes
have a
more
stronger
sense.
emphasis.
Yes.
But that's my interpretation. That's really an interpretive decision that we're making here.
Well, so the only reason I put one another is because my assumption was that if it's plural, it has to be reciprocal, which is one to one. They're doing it to one another.
Yeah, but it doesnn't have to be that way.
Then-
It's just one of the ways that a
Then
middle.
themselves
Yeah.
is my final answer.
So, and this is something to learn when you're doing Greek or any language, is that you're going to have statements that you could translate 2 or 3 ways. Context is going to determine that, but in the end, sometimes it's going to be a little bit of an interpretation on your part. That's the struggle of translators, are not just translating a word; they also have to kind of interpret it in the context. So,
Is this sentence a compound sentence or complex sentence? Explain the significance of your choice. Complex, because there is a dependent clause. The second half of the sentence does not make sense without the first.
I put compound.
And I put compound too, because you have
Oh,
two,
Two independent.
yeah, because
fun,
you,
friends.
because you can say men of the world glorify themselves, period. And you could say righteous men glorify God, period. And both of those can stand on their own without having the other sentence.
Wrong. Okay. Within the context of the sentence, what is the significance of the function of the voice of Daksadzantai? Well, I said reciprocal, but I take it back. Reflexive.
Okay.
What is the adjective dikaioi in? Oh, what use is the adjective dikaioi in? Wait, what? Attributive. What is significant about this use? It attributes something to the noun that it's modifying. What is the function in the sentence of the noun that dikaioi modifies? It is the what is the function in the sentence of the noun? The function is the subject.
Okay. Now, normally, remember, when we were learning adjectives, you normally, to put adjective in the attributive position, you have a definite article.
Normally, that's true.
But we have no definite article in this case.
True story.
Because he's not saying these specific men, he's just talking about men as an idea. Men as,
righteous men.
yeah.
I had to really go back. When the article is absent, the context will determine whether the construction is used attributively or
Right. And you'd have an odd sentence because you did say the men are righteous, they glorify God, which would be two distinct ideas. It seems better the other way. So, okay. Joe, last one today, number 20. I think this is our last one.
Okay. Ta Leon, di hu kai soseste.
Okay, say that the second word in the sentence again.
Evangelion.
Okay, euangelion. Okay.
Euangelion. Oh yeah, euangelion. I keep thinking of evangel. Euang.
Yeah.
Okay. So rough again, the gospel through which and you all are being saved. So the gospel through or by which you are being saved, and through by which you're being saved.
Okay.
Note that who is a generative singular masculine relative pronoun. How can you be sure that u is not a negative particle? Because of the rough breathing mark.
Okay.
Dissect and parse. So seste, it's a verb, present, passive, indicative. If it had an augment, it would be epsilon. Second person, plural. Lexical form is so. Stem is sos. And ending is este. Connecting vowel epsilon. And the subject is you, plural, or you all.
Okay.
the gospel to which you also.
I translated the Kai also are saved. And it's because in there
Oh, yeah.
Paul's got like 4 things that he's saying in these things. The gospel, this and this and this and this. So yeah.
Also, right? Sure.
I should look that verse up because I'm wondering, does he have an and before each one of those little phrases? I couldn't tell you. It's one of those verses you quote all the time, and then you got to go back and think about it.
To you, which you have also received, in which you also stand, by which you are also being saved.
Yeah, and in the Greek,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
In the Greek, it's by which also you stand, because the first thing he says, which also you receive, by which also you stand, through which also you are saved. So there's a chi before each one of those verbs indicating this in addition to this, in addition to this.
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? So, quick review. There's a no prize for the first one. They'd be able to tell us what are the endings for the middle passive present indicative.
My side. Something untied. Meta esta untied?
Metha esta anti, yeah. Okay, those are endings. The main idea of the middle.
Is that
The subject acts on itself.
Okay, acts on itself or in its own interest.
Right.
Some personal interest. And the passive,
Is the action, the subject being acted by something else.
that's right. Which may in the verse may or may not be expressed. So the verse may or may not tell us what that other source is that's acting on them. Okay, so we are going to be gone.
May 4th will be your next.
Well, Peggy says May 4th. Oh,
May
and
the
Peggy,
4th
that's right. Peggy won't be here
be
because
with you.
our daughter's having her tonsils out and Peggy's going to care for her. So anyway, May 4th, we will review the test, see how you did. And I will try to get the answers up. I'll give you a week to work on the test and then I'll get the answers up. I should go through and review the test one more time just to make sure I didn't make any stupid questions. Yes, I can do that sometimes. So I should have put in there, see how well you guys listen. I should have put in there extra point for anybody that knows my wife's middle name. My dad used to do that in his exams. He'd go,
You call me that.
I know, that's what I was saying. See how well they listen.
Yeah.
See how well they listen. But my dad used to do that with his exams. He'd say 1 extra credit point for anybody that knows my wife's middle name, which was like, so you'd have kids in the class go, Tim, what's your mom's name? And I just said, I can't tell you, it's a test.
This is a test.
Stupid.
Frigid.
You guys have a great 2 weeks.
Well, we hope so. We hope so. My sister, I called her this morning and I missed her call and then she called and talked to my wife. So we're looking at doing, well, I can end this.